Under the bruised gray sky, the rain fell like judgment, cold, endless, merciless. The storm had rolled in fast, swallowing the coastline in mist and thunder, but the shouting carried through it all. Throw her out. Someone barked. The sound of boots and anger followed. Lieutenant Ava Monroe stood in the open yard of Camp Wraith, soaked to the bone, her duffel bag lying in the mud like a wounded animal. Her uniform was caked in grime, her insignia stripped from the chest. A dozen faces watched, some with pity, most with disdain. Captain Briggs pointed toward the gate. "You're relieved, Monroe. Effective immediately. Hand over your weapon and your clearance card." She didn't move. Rain streamed down her face, tracing paths through the dirt. Her voice was steady, almost too calm. "My mission report was accurate, sir. The failure wasn't mine. Briggs's jaw tightened. You disobeyed a direct order. I saved 3 lives and lost 5 more." His tone cracked like a whip. "You don't get to decide the cost, Lieutenant. Not in my unit." She swallowed hard, the sting of injustice sharper than the rain. Around her the others whispered. Some shook their heads. Others just stared. She unclipped her sidearm, set it gently in the mud, and raised her chin. "Understood, sir. Get her out of my sight." 2 MPs stepped forward. She didn't resist. As the gates clanged shut behind her, thunder rolled across the sea. The storm swallowed her whole. Hours later, the rain turned to mist. Ave sat alone near the cliffs, the roar of waves below mixing with her thoughts. Her hands trembled, not from fear but fury. 3 years, 3 deployments, 2 confirmed kills in classified operations. And now she was a disgrace, a scapegoat for an ambush that had never been her fault. Her radio had been jammed. The evac never came. She'd made a call, the kind that saves a few, not all. And men like Briggs couldn't stand when the math didn't match their orders. She closed her eyes, remembering the faces of the men she'd saved. Corporal Ruiz, barely 23, who'd been bleeding out when she found him. Sergeant Crow, who'd lost his arm but kept his life. And Mason, her spotter. He'd looked up at her that night in the burning wreckage, whispering through blood and smoke, "You did right, Ava. You always do." She hadn't seen him since. Days passed. Officially, she was under review. Unofficially, she was finished. They left her in a motel near the docks, told her to stay put. She didn't. When the distress call came through the emergency channel, she was the only one who heard it. Scrambled, broken, desperate. "Team Echo under heavy fire, enemy armor request immediate support, coordinates 3 clicks north of base." Her blood went cold. "Team Echo," Mason's team. Without thinking, she grabbed her pack, loaded her suppressed-em 110, and headed out into the rain again. The jungle was a swamp by the time she reached the coordinates. Smoke curled through the trees. The smell of gunpowder and blood clung to the air. She moved low, silent, eyes scanning for movement. The firefight had ended, but not cleanly. Bodies. Both sides, too many. Then she saw it. Movement near the ridge. Mason, crawling, bleeding, clutching his rifle with one hand. "Ava," he rasped when he saw her. "They flanked us. Briggs never sent backup." She knelt beside him, wrapping his arm over her shoulder. "I'm here now." He coughed, spitting blood. "You shouldn't be. Neither should you." She dragged him toward cover, scanning the horizon. In the distance, she saw figures moving. Enemy patrols sweeping back through the valley, a full squad. No reinforcements, no command, just her. She exhaled, calm cutting through the chaos like glass. "Okay," she whispered. "Then we make our own way out." By dawn, she had mapped their movement through instinct alone. She set traps using broken shell casings, positioned decoys with fallen helmets, and sniped advancing enemies with precision so cold it looked supernatural. Every shot she took landed where it was meant to. Every breath was a vow. When the enemy commander tried to flank them from the east ridge, her bullet found him mid-sentence. Mason watched, barely conscious, whispering, You never miss." She pressed a bandage over his shoulder. "You taught me that, remember." 2 days later, they made it back to the edge of the coast. The storm had returned, hard and heavy, as though the sky itself wanted to test her. A convoy approached through the rain. U.S. SEALs, full gear, moving fast. She recognized the insignia immediately. SEAL Team 7, their leader, a broad-shouldered man named Commander Rafe Donovan, stepped out and froze when he saw her. "Monroe," she nodded once. "They're all dead up there. Team Echo's gone. Mason's barely holding on." He glanced at the radio operator beside him. "Command said you were off duty." "I was," she said quietly, but duty didn't care. Something in her tone made him pause. "You fought your way out alone." She just looked past him toward the horizon. "We don't leave our own." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Mount up. You're with us now." When they returned to Camp Wraith 3 days later, silence fell like a verdict. Rain still fell, soft and steady, as the convoy rolled through the gates. Men and women gathered, curious, cautious. Ava stepped out first, mud, smeared, bloodied. Her SEALs followed behind her like shadows, and in the back of one of the trucks, Mason, alive, bandaged, breathing. Captain Briggs was waiting. The shock on his face was unmistakable. "What the hell?" Commander Donovan tossed him a tablet. "Mission logs, visual confirmation. Monroe led the exfil, saved what was left of Echo." Briggs's lips parted, but no words came. The silence was punishment enough. Ava walked up to him, eyes steady. "You left me in the rain, Captain. Remember?" He tried to speak. Failed. She looked past him at the young recruits watching from the yard. "Here's the thing about the storm," she said. "It doesn't break you. It shows you who was built to stand in it." Her words cut through the drizzle like lightning. The recruits stood straighter. The SEALs behind her nodded, silent, proud. Then Donovan's voice boomed. "From this day forward, Lieutenant Monroe leads SEAL Strike Recon, Operation Tempest." Briggs's face fell. "That's my—" "Not anymore," Donovan said simply. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. The respect was louder than applause. That night, as the storm cleared, Ava stood alone by the cliff again. The sea stretched endless and dark, whispering like an old friend. Mason's dog tag hung around her neck now he'd given it to her before surgery. She closed her eyes, feeling the wind against her skin. The rain no longer felt like punishment. It felt like absolution. She whispered to the ocean, "They threw me out, but I never left." And from that night on, every soldier at Camp Wraith remembered her name, the woman they tried to bury in the storm who came back leading the lightning.